Scunthorpe United lost 4-0 at home to Exeter City this afternoon. Love it.
Open wide for some soccer!
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. We've got no games to talk about. So we will talk about the non-existent game that happened. Welcome. Sit down. Josh Gowling will be joining us in a minute, and we'll be here to answer your questions and sort of take anything you'd like to ask him about his time, maybe at Hereford, at town, whatever, what he sees in the future. I guess we should, gents. Firstly, Tom, welcome. Still going with his first out. How's everything with you on the south coast of England? Did any gazebos, wheelie bins get lost in this week's action?
Yeah, it's been really windy. Quite a few tiles flown off on my street. A couple of telephone cables down. Quite exciting, really.
We lost our gazebo, as everybody saw. That was spectacular. Also, giving us the southern persuasion. Nobody here is above the M4 on this podcast today. Mike, did you? Nice to see you survived. Many casualties.
It was all right, mate. We hung on, just about survived.
No, no trees down, no poles down, nothing.
We've
all
lost
good?
a couple of plant pots, which I'm devastated about.
There we go. I mean, it was a red weather warning. We all live within it. In fact, yeah, we all do live within it. Tom, you were even in the red weather warning down in Pompey, weren't you?
Yeah.
Southend, and some are saying the National League, in their ultimate wisdom, decided the best thing to do was to encourage ticket sales still at 11 o'clock that morning for a game which was going to be taking place, in a stadium. Probably wouldn't last particularly well in one of the worst storms in the last 20 years. Do you have any thoughts on it? I have a few. I think I'm a lot calmer now than I was when I was driving home. Tom, what were your main thoughts? Because you were meant to come with me and you couldn't get up to Guildford because, train line were down.
Yeah, I just think it was just another poor showing from another football club in terms of considering the travel arrangements of supporters, and that probably counts for home fans as well. I'm sure there are some Southend fans, just like town. I'm sure there's some Southend fans who travel from further than Southend town centre. If I'd have travelled up with you, by the time the game had been called off, I'd have been halfway there from where I was travelling from, if not more, and that would have cost me a fair bit of money.
Am I going to get my money back basically from Southend on my petrol? I got to Rickmansworth, which is 50 miles, a good 100-mile round trip, along the M25. Who doesn't want to spend their day watching planes struggle? Actually, I was basically got a live view of Big Jet TV, so I was well ahead of the curve in terms of the country. It's a bit surprising. There aren't many games where you get this sort of level of warning and this sort of level of hyperbole. And I think that's a bit different. Some fans are sort of making comparisons to the game we had at home against Boreham Wood, where the Findus stand decided to give up the ghost a little bit and throw stuff into the car park. Hopefully it was aiming for an Aston Martin. Anyway, it's an interesting one, really, where in terms of I was disappointed in the way it was led. It's an opportunity to be quite active, proactive, to say, look, and even if you just wanted to say, look, we're going to do our best to get this game to go ahead, get on with it. It looks like the worst of it will pass. And if the stadium stands up to the rigors of it, then we'll go ahead with it. But if you are a town fan traveling down and you don't feel it's what we would suggest not to, you can have a refund on your ticket. Because obviously if the game had gone ahead, no one would have been able to get their money back. I was a bit disappointed in how it was all leveraged out, really. I don't know if my point is worthwhile or not.
Well, you can get a refund on your ticket, can't you, if the game is called off? It is the travel costs and the time that's the main problem. And you cited the Boreham Wood game at home. I also travelled up from Portsmouth for the Boreham Wood game,
Well,
and I was in Cleethorpes on the morning of that game, having travelled up the night before. I think the difference with the Boreham Wood game was that there wasn't a red weather warning before, was there?
yeah, and I think that's what makes it different for me. Is like the Met Office say, look, you could die.
Yeah, there's two separate points, really, isn't there? There's the normal postponement of games when the weather's bad. You do all you can to get a game on, and then maybe the pitch doesn't respond well to it, or something happens at the stadium. But this was completely different. I mean, the Met Office issuing a red weather warning. I mean, to call it off at 4 o'clock, 3 hours before kickoff, when you've had so much notice, is a bit of a ridiculous thing to do. We could all sort of see that was going to happen. And all they've done by keeping the game and trying to get the game on is they've given an event for fans to try and travel to when it's probably advisable they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, I don't understand why they couldn't have just moved the game to Saturday afternoon when there was loads of games on. The team, like obviously Town were already down there. I don't really think it would have been a massive problem for them to stay on another 24 hours. Like that would have been the best solution, and they didn't find that. So,
do you think at least it's an advantage? Maguire Drew is able to sort of have a little bit more match fitness before we face one of the informed teams in the league at the moment. Given, I mean, irrespective of Southend's current position.
Well, I mean, it keeps the run on, doesn't it? Instead of facing an informed Southend team. I mean, one point I would raise is I'm amazed things like this are still in the hands of the football club. I mean, when you've got a national weather warning like that, why local authorities and people in charge of local areas are not sort of taking that decision out of commercial businesses' hands is...
Yeah, it's very similar to when there's a big snowstorm and the pitch is fine, but they're saying, look, get into the ground is a bit of a pain, and there'll be, local news reporters out there putting a camera on a bit of ice and watching everyone fall on their ass. So, I mean, that's what we can say about that. Thank you so many for your questions. But we got the main event. Josh Gowling is going to be with us in a second. I'm going to press one of these fancy transition buttons, and then we'll be back with you in a couple of seconds. See you then. Okay, it doesn't make any noise, so I can talk all over it. So it now looks stupid. I should put music on it.
That's the budget gone, isn't it?
That's the budget. We can't afford, royalty-free music. That's
You can sing, mate.
The podcast tune cost 20 quid, I think, when we bought it for the first time. We got our money's worth out of it. Just as long as John Moore doesn't ask for any for his commentary over the front of it. Josh, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad at all, really. Saturdays without a game are frustrating, but you're not going to be disappointed at least.
Yeah, no, we had a game yesterday, so I'm not as disappointed as you.
It's a really interesting one, really. So, how did you know your game was going to go ahead, really, and there was no issues with it? I guess everything was fine, was it?
Yeah, I mean, we got there. There was obviously because of the weather. I mean, getting there was a nightmare. It took me 4 hours to get to Chester on a 2-hour, 40-minute journey. So, and the coach got there late, so we had to delay kickoff 15 minutes. But it was just really, really windy, to be honest. It stopped raining when we got there. The pitch was heavy in certain areas, but I mean, the Chester groundsman done excellent to get the game on. But it was just it was really just windy conditions more than anything.
But it's not a bad journey home, is it? After it wasn't last minute, I guess, but a late winner.
Frustrating because we conceded from 2 set plays, and obviously as a centre half, kind of got on my nerves a little bit. But no, we started to hit form now, the right point of the season, and we're scoring goals now, which is pleasing. So yeah, I mean, going to Chester, I think they've lost before our game. They've only lost 2 home games, so going there and getting a victory there with that kind of home form they've got was really pleasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as you weren't managing that Cheltenham Wickham 5-5 draw yesterday, I imagine your frustrations as a centre half
My
would have
hair
been a
was
little
a
bit
bit
more.
long.
I mean, we've had quite a few questions come in, and I've got to thank you because we've got nothing to talk about today. So it's been great. We were talking about having you on, and thank you so much for jumping on late. I mean, I guess the first question is sort of, what are your abiding memories of the town, and then we'll go into the sort of the questions. Of your time here? What were your most memorable experiences? Really,
At the club or at Grimsby?
both. Let's do both. I'm slightly worried about the
Well,
Grimsby one. Let's do the club.
no, I mean, it was probably obviously. Well, the first thing was I started with kind of sadness, I suppose, of coming on loan, and I remember we were doing sprints. The year we lost in the final, we had a sprint relay. I don't know why we had a sprint relay a week before the final, but we had a sprint relay, a bit of fun, and I pulled my hammy. So I had a grade 2 tear in my hammy. So I was like, so that was on the in the week, and then on the Monday I was out trying to jog, like trying to convince myself that I'd be fit for the game, which I never was going to be. And then obviously coming to the final and seeing obviously JP step up and miss the penalty and the sadness in the squad, I just had to stay. I think it was a big thing for me to get back there and win. And you know, that's what the season was about. And it was just a magical season. Obviously, the semi-finals first leg didn't go as well as I'd like, because I gave the penalty away. So, it was just, yeah, we knew when we won the Braintree game, we knew we'd win. We were going to get promoted. We just knew, because we hadn't scored a goal against Braintree all season, and we just knew it was such a tough task. So we went there, we won, and we just knew we'd win the final already, even before we got there.
One question about that Braintree. It was an incredible game, but I still think I've got heat stroke from that match. I don't think I've been in a hotter game.
I couldn't speak. It was just horrendous. It was the hottest day ever. So it didn't help.
It was so odd, and especially in an open territory. Like there was a lot of bright red heads, I imagine, the next day.
Yeah, and obviously with me having a radiator on my head, it didn't help on that day.
You should have said we'd have thrown loads of water over you. It'd have been fine. I guess. Did you have options to move then in 2015? Then were there options to sort of maybe jump to a higher level?
What, when I came to Grimsby?
Yeah, after sort of, yeah. Did you have an opportunity to move up again in that before that season?
Yeah, but obviously, look, like I said, what happened. So I just wanted to. I didn't finish business, so I wanted to kind of finish off what we started. So I was never going to go anywhere.
I mean, we're relieved. Tom, have you got anything to ask while I have a quick look through? I think that some of these questions are pretty good.
I have got loads of questions, Josh.
Hang on.
Well, firstly, just going back to some recent news, you were linked with the Boston United job just before Christmas, I think it was. Were you ever close to going to Pilgrim Way?
That's a good question. No, obviously, I know I was linked with a job. Obviously, I was firmly focused on what we're doing at Hereford and the project we're doing there. So it's nice to be linked with jobs. Boston's obviously at our level. You know, it's a good club. It's got a big budget. It's got a new stadium. It's obviously a club that wants to go places. So it's nice to get linked with it. But from my point of view, you know, I never had any contact with them. You know, I was firmly focused on my job and what I was doing at Hereford.
Okay. And then I'm going to rattle through my questions because why not? I haven't watched any Hereford games, I'm afraid, this year.
I mean, out of all of us, that is the most surprising. If there was anyone that would have
done. But I'd like to know what your opinion is about playing out from the back as a coach from a goal kick. So, you know, when people get the ball at a goal kick and you get normally the two full-backs or the two centre-backs drop to the edge of the 18-yard box and the full-backs push on. It seems to sort of, especially in the lower leagues, it seems to really polarise opinion. I was just wondering, from a coaching perspective, what your opinion is on playing out from the back.
Yeah, I mean, they have them either side of the 6-yard box, don't they? And then playing out.
Yeah.
From my point of view, I watched the Swindon game against, was it Man City?
Yeah.
You did it, and I'm like, you're playing against the best pressing team probably one of the best pressing teams in the world, and you're playing out in the 6-yard box and you're in League One or League Two, whatever league they're in. So we don't do that. So I just think the National League is very much a second ball league. Obviously, it is possession based with some teams, but I just feel, the players, no disrespect to the players, but we're not in the Premier League where, the players have got that real quality to open up teams, and teams will do it at times and they'll get away with it. But for me, the risk versus reward is just not there. So I would much rather play a bit more direct and then get the ball down and play once we, get our motion going, once we've got and picked up second ball. So that's how I see it. We rub our hands together, to be honest. When teams set up their 2 centre halves in the 6-yard box, because of the way we press, we're like, go on then. And then we'll just press the living daylights out of them. And they'll break for our press sometimes, but the times they won't, the risk for us is well worth it, because all of a sudden you're in and amongst the 18-yard box. They've got 2 centre halves to either side. They've got 2 fullbacks on the halfway line, and you just 1v1 or 2v2. So, yeah, we definitely don't do that.
Okay, and then continuing the tactical theme. This last week, I've been watching The Last Dance about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan on Netflix. And I was wondering if, as a coach, you take any inspiration for set pieces, phases of play, or training from other sports, because I've always thought that with basketball in particular, there is potential to sort of imitate some of their plays from dead ball situations in footballs, especially, for example, throw-ins.
Yeah, so I know The Last Dance well. So we name all our seasons. So this season for us was called The Elevation. So it's about elevating. We did everything from last year, because I just feel like we need a clear focus for the season. So we do that now. I look at a lot of American football stuff, so the footwork and the movements. In football, you do quite a lot of linear stuff, but you don't do lateral movement, sideways, backwards, all that stuff. You don't do a lot of that movement. So I definitely look at a lot of that, and my strength and conditioning coach make sure he does that. And when I look at basketball, when you look at phases of play, someone will have a shot, it might be a corner, what it is, and then they break so quickly. And if you look at our team, we're very expansive. When we defended from a set play, well, we need to defend set plays better for a start anyway, but we won't go into that. But when we win the ball back, we just break, with real intensity and purpose. So yeah, I definitely look at all sports. I think we need to. A lot of sports do look at other sports. I think football is catching up slowly with other sports, but I think it's still got quite a long way to go with that.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question on that one? Sorry, Tom.
No,
in terms of you've now got a unique perspective, being both a manager and a former player. Now we've obviously got new owners within the club. Yeah. As a player and now as a manager, what would you think would be the first things you picked up on, thinking back to 2016, 2017? What would you want to have made changes at Blundell Park in terms of?
So, I mean, for me, the biggest thing at the club, for me, if you look at the community side of things, we need to be in the community more. The football club needs to grow more. There's some great people at the football club, but if you look at Lincoln, dare I say, talk about them.
Put him off, Tom.
I know. Yeah. I was captain there as well, so I can talk about it. But what they have done is they have branched out into the community massively, and I think that's paid dividends with the attendances they get at the football club. Now I know our attendances were brilliant. I've been brilliant this year, but I just feel the football club can do more in the community. I think there's lots of scope. There's in this town, it's just football. They just absolutely love it, and I just think that possibly the club could do a lot more. And I'm not sure how much they do now, but obviously when I was there, I just felt that we're missing a trick.
Is there anything in particular you'd like to see them do to reach out to people? So, for example, Tom, actually, come to think of it, all of us have. I don't think any of us have lived in Grimsby. You're probably the closest to it.
No, I've lived in Grimsby.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that. So Tom is from Skegness. Mike is down here in London, and I'm in Surrey. And though we've all lived around the town, there has never been necessarily. I don't think there was much interaction outside of North East Lincolnshire. So, like looking at Caister and Louth and places like that, that sort of evaporates.
I used to live in Caister. That's where I lived when I live in Grimsby now.
Yeah. How's what did you make of Caister then?
It was nice. It was really quiet. So I was like the only black man in the village. So yeah, it was good.
I'm trying to think. Going, yeah, that's actually probably true.
No, I loved it. There were great people there. I just like to be out of the way and just be quiet and just get on about my business. So it was nice there, and it was a good route into Grimsby. So no, I really enjoyed it there.
Unless it snowed.
Unless it's
then you're all screwed.
I was going nowhere.
That's really interesting. And then, sort of, as a player, did you think there was anything else? So we interviewed James McEwen in the summer, and Maka was saying one of the things that he was really surprised at in the changes is that he goes into the changing room now, even at Cheapside, and his kit's laid out and it's all pressed, it's all cleaned up. And he said, I think he said, Christ, I feel like an actual professional footballer for once. Is there anything else like that from your experiences, like you would love to have seen changed as a player?
It was a pretty. I would like to see the training ground have a bit more kind of, because obviously we didn't have a gym. Well, we've got a gym, but it's like a porta cabin. So it wasn't really. I mean, the equipment wasn't really conducive to do the proper workout. So you'd have to go to a gym, and I know the club are thinking about spending money on that. And I just think strength and conditioning nowadays. I mean, if you look at the National League, it's a big league. You know, the players are big, physical, strong, quick. I'd like to see a bit more probably invested in that area. I would have at the time, to be honest, because I spent all my days in the gym. I wasn't the biggest anyway, but that's why I spent my time in the gym. So I think probably that side of the thing would be good. Obviously, they've brought an S&C coach on now. I think the analysis side of things and the data side of things we didn't really do, and that's massive now. So I definitely would have liked to see that when I was there.
Tom, you were going to ask a follow-up question. I'm really sorry I interrupted you and then took it away.
No, that's fine. My last question was, as someone who's involved in professional football, where do you see the game headed in the next 20 years? Do you think that the European Super League was perhaps a missed opportunity for the lower leagues rather than what it's been portrayed as, which was a victory?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think if you have breakaway leagues, I think it's always going to be a detriment to. I think it would be a detriment to Premier League, to be honest. I think if you look at like the German model, and I know Bayern Munich were getting involved in it, but obviously their whole thing's geared around the league producing players for the national team, and I just feel that we need to. The problem with the English DNA is that we will do it for a period and it won't work, and then we'll follow another country. But the top of the pyramid is the Premier League, and they are not looking to bring any young English players through. They're looking to get the best players from abroad everywhere to come into the league and spend loads and just make loads of money. So from my point of view, it would be nice to see not taking the Premier League away, but make it a bit more nationalised so that we can start bringing players through. And because we have got some really good young talent, you know, especially in some of the academies now, you have an under-23 system where these lads have never played men's football. You've got 22-year-olds that have never kicked a ball in a man's game in his life. You know, we've had a lad coming from a championship club, centre half, can't head a ball. Because the 23s, it is literally passing out of the jar box, playing around, getting through. And I'm sure you've seen some of them at Grimsby where all of a sudden they come in the men's game and they really struggle. And I'd like to see that system change, because when I come through, it was reserves. So the lads that didn't play on a Saturday for the first team played in the reserves. Now, if you were good enough as an 18-year-old to play in the reserves, you were playing against men. You know, and I played against, you know, players like Chris Armstrong and people like that. And that was my education. So I'd like to see football get back to that way. But the reality is football is monetized, and that's what it's about. So if the Super League is going to generate more money for football, then I think it will go that way, which is sad. But where the money goes is where football is going, I think.
I think we had some of those defenders last season that couldn't head a ball. What were you going to say, Mike?
Yeah, so just to link into what Josh is saying about youth development, I mean, last season especially, and a little bit this season, we've heard an awful lot about bigger teams not wanting to send their academy players out because of COVID, and then that keeps their numbers lower. Just wondering if that's something that's just unique to us, or it's something you've seen lower down the pyramid. And also, how do you think that's going to affect those players now that the last couple of seasons they've not really been able to get out and play that football? And for a team that in National League North, have you then had to find some different ways, like blood your youth players a lot more, or find a new innovative way to get around that, not having the the loan players?
So it's weird. So you have a system in England currently where you have under 23s, not all managers, but they have an under 23s team and they want their best players because they want to not necessarily look good, but they want to win games. So it's that detriment to the players. So what we found was that during the COVID period, because the thing is we're not full time. So for us, it impacted us massively getting loan players because the reality is now when COVID's still here, but the restrictions are a lot less. You can bring a player in, he can train with you twice a week, and then go back to his club and train there. So all of a sudden, what it meant was that we just couldn't get any loan players in for full-time clubs because they were missing training days. So it impacted us massively. So then we went kind of into the market, and I'm obviously big on data with transfers and all that stuff. And we started looking at players that just didn't have clubs. They were waiting, they didn't have clubs. So then you can bring all these players in on non-contracts, and that's what we had to do. But I think it's definitely impacted young lads because they've just been sitting around kind of waiting, not playing games and just sitting there. And youth teams at Premier League clubs, they've got like 50 kids. They can't all play. So there's kids there that have probably spent a year, 2 years and literally not kicked a ball. And it's really alarming for the development. And I just think if you look at the drop-off rate of, players at that level, I mean, what 1% make it? So where do the rest go? And it's really alarming when they've not played any football, then they have to come to our levels, but they're not physically ready or mentally ready to come into men's football and a ball get thrown up in the air and a big centre half come through and how about you in the head? Like, they're just not ready for it, unfortunately. So I think that's where you find such a big drop-off rate. But also the wages. You've got some 19-year-olds that are on 10 grand a week and never played men's football. Then they get released and they're coming down to the National League level and they're getting £500 a week. It's just, more needs to be done. I know Palace started doing something recently with players up to football. I've seen some stuff on that, but there definitely needs to be a better way of filtering these players into the men's game.
Did you, speaking of sort of data, this is really, I don't know how, this sounds really outdated now, actually talking about Moneyball and stuff, but what is football's on-base percentage? What is that unknown statistic that revolutionized football? I guess it must have been found by now, because it can't be as easy as cricket and baseball to potentially find. Is there one?
No, I just think everyone has their own ways. So I am creating our own system. So, I just believe with where we're at financially, we have to be really stringent with all our, our recruitment. And for me, we're building a data set. You can get statistics off Wyscout all day, pass completions, all that stuff, and they're very generic data. This is just generic data that anyone can get. Now, a pass completion to you might be a completely different to me. So what we're doing is building our own database, building our own set of data around our identity, so that when we're making decisions on players, we're seeing them, obviously scouting them and stuff, but then it also, I think sometimes your eyes can lie. Now, the reality is, as a manager, I can go and see a player and he plays amazing. I think I want him. And then I'll go and see him again 2 or 3 times and he plays amazing. But there's another 40 games that season. Now, it might be that I've just seen him 3 times and he was good those 3 times. So for us, we're coming up with a data set that, one, fits in with our identity and the way we play, but also they're statistically the best players at that level. That may go under the radar because they might not be the most fashionable. So we're creating that and we're creating a system with that. So it's in place pretty much now. Obviously, we've had a period where we've needed to collect the data, of course, and the data still gets collected, but it will inform our recruitment come the end of the season on the players we bring in.
Do you think that statistics now play on a player's mind? Say, for example, you look at pass completion rate. A player is so aware of that, he would be more inclined to make the safe pass than maybe play the ball into the channel or try and break through the lines. Do you think that is at all an issue, or am I just making that up off the top of my head?
No, I think it comes down to the way you kind of word your data. So I've been pulled in office before and gone, your pass completion rate is 40%. And I've gone, okay. And I've gone, but a pass completion is me to pass to you, and that's a pass completion. Now, during the game, I might get a ball down. You might work on your throw-in. So we might work on our throw-ins in the final third. So as a centre half, I might get the ball and drop a ball in the channel and they kick it out in the final third for throw-in. we do a throw in and score from the throw in, but my pass completion rate's down because it's not going to be a penalty. It's gone to the opposition. So it depends how the manager sees that data. So is he looking at the data? Is he looking at the game? What's the understanding of that data? And how does he then frame it to the players? So, and I just think the way we are here is it's risk versus reward, and it's finding that happy balance. So if I've got a player that his completion rate is 40%, but we win the game with a through pass last minute of the game, and he's been trying those passes all game, and he finally did one, we win 1-0. I'm not going to come at the end of the game and go, your pass completion rate is 40%. You're not good enough. You're not playing. So it's just how you see that data and how you use it to affect the players. So I think that's a big thing because it can be scary, of course. So if you come in at the end and you've gone, well, your pass completion rate is 40%, then the player's going to be like, I'm giving the ball away 60% of the time. It's going to be an issue. But I think it's just how you word that to the player and how you look at it yourself as, the top of the pyramid.
Perfect. Tom? And then we'll go to the question as well. Anybody who wants to add a question, feel free to do it on the live part as well. I'll wrangle them through. What were you going to say, Tom?
I've got a couple of questions, Josh. Firstly, just going back to where you mentioned the identity of a club there. I don't know if Podge ever mentioned it when you were playing together. But in GAA, there was a manager of the Dublin football team called Jim Gavin who said that a team could never play the same style more than 2 seasons on a trot because other teams would eventually become aware of those tactics and be able to counter them. So when you're talking about identity of a football club, to what extent do you think that you can implement an identity and that be the way they play, or do you see identity slightly different to that?
I see it different. So obviously we have your core beliefs. So we have core beliefs and values, second balls, restarts, pressing, all that stuff. So within that is our identity. And then that is our kind of DNA. They're our fundamentals. They're our non-negotiables that lads have to live by. Counter pressing, accountability, all that stuff. So that's what we live by. Now, we have a clear way of playing, but within that, we have tweaks to it. So we can play in different ways and we can kind of adapt it, but the core values stay the same. So, you look at us at the start of the season, the first 10 games, I think we won 1. Now, why was that? Was that because we had 2 centre midfielders playing centre half, and we were really expansive. We had both our fullbacks going forward, and then all of a sudden, players are turning balls in behind, and we're getting done. But we've got a clear system, so we can tweak our system within that. So maybe we don't get a fullback as high, or maybe we get a centre midfielder rolling in between the fullback and the centre half, which enables when the transition turns over, we've got a midfield in a good defensive area. So what I would say is it can't be too rigid. I think it has to be fluid, but I think you have to have your fundamentals and your key beliefs behind it. And I really do believe that. But I also believe that you have to have other ways of playing football. You have to have other formations. You have to have, like our midfield, we play 2 and a 1, and at times we play in a 1 and a 2, and at times we want our 2 wide players to stay wide, and at times we want them to run inside and our 10 to run in behind. So we're quite fluid in the sense that we look at the opposition and look at their weaknesses and try and exploit their weaknesses within the way we play. So we're not always. It's not easy just to turn around and go, well, they just do that, so we'll do that and we'll just nullify it. So I think it is important to be as fluid as possible within your beliefs.
Then my last question, which is not really related to anything we've been talking about. You're obviously really close to the Welsh border with your team. And a former Grimsby Town manager or assistant caretaker manager, Anthony Limbrick, is currently manager at TNS. Do you think that the top level of Welsh football is a backward step for people coming from non-league in England, or do you think it can actually be a stepping stone to something better?
It is a difficult one, isn't it? Because we played TNS last year when they were just going before their Champions League or Europa League game, and we beat them 2-0. It's a different type of football. I think it's very technical. It's slower, but what can I say? They're going in Europa League qualifiers and Champions League qualifiers, so the standard is good. I think it would be good to go into there because it's a very more technical league. So all leagues are different, aren't they? But the reality is you need to be in a job to have the opportunity to go somewhere else, and that's the reality of it. So I know Anthony did well here, and obviously he's gone over there. But you need to work at the end of the day, and there are some good teams at that level. You know, TNS, Connor Keys, and a few other clubs that have got a lot of money and they spend big to try and do things right. So, you know, who am I to say that it's a step down?
Are you in competition with teams like TNS and Connors Key for players at Hereford financially?
No. So what I did, I made a conscious decision when I took over to move the training base. So we trained in Gloucester at night times, and for me, coming from full-time football to then going to train I was a player at the time in Gloucester at night, the transition was too much for me. I was getting home at 12 o'clock at night, training twice a week. I just couldn't deal with it. So my first thing when I got the job on a permanent basis was, the reality is we're in the National League North. Now, why are we training in the South when we're playing all our games in the North? It makes no sense. So we had a big budget. We were spending ridiculous amount of money on expenses for players from the North to travel down to training. So we just changed it. My budget got stripped, of course. So what I had to do was think on my feet. So we moved the training base to Birmingham, which was a much more central location. It's where we train now. We get a better pool of player. We get a better quality of player for less money. And that's the reality of it. And it's a good catchment area. It's a big football club. But one of the problems with the club was when you ask people to come in, it's like, well, Hereford's a long way.
Yeah.
You know, it's a long way. And, you know, I'd rather go to a team around the corner that I could play week in, week out and get similar money than travel 3 hours to Hereford. So it just changed the whole dynamics of what we did. We train in the morning, so we're still part-time, but we train 2 mornings a week. So what that enables us to do is get some of the professionals that, you know, in the Football League or the league above that still want to be professional, but for whatever reason they can't find a club. So the transition is they're still training twice a week. So which helps massively. And then, you know, that we have a buy-in, so the lads have to do a certain amount of distances per week they're not in, because it's important that I get the right group of players at the football club. So they all buy into it. If they don't get the distances in, they get fined. If they don't get the distances on a Saturday, they get fined. So, you know, I want a core group of players that want to work for me, want to work for the football club and want to be better. And we've been able to do that by changing the training base.
Nice.
We had an interesting question on that from a fan that says, similar to Hurst, you're managing a club that feels it's below its natural level. What issues does that present? I.e., I guess pressure from home fans to perform, or is there anything else as well that you find?
I think coming into now, when you say it's below its level, in terms of what I would say about Hereford, in terms of fans, yes. In terms of finances, no. So we are where we are. So in terms of finances, this is where we should be. So, and yes, fan base, we're a big football club, but financially we're not. So, and that's getting people to understand that when we've had big money before in the past and we're not there now is tough, because obviously when you're not doing well, like we were at the start of the season, it's like, well, you got to get this player, you got to get that player, you got to do this, you got to do that, when you don't have it. So you have to be more diligent with your signings. You have to create an identity for the football club that you can tweak and evolve. You have to work tirelessly in the community. That I do. I spend a lot of time in the community doing projects to engage the fans, to make sure they come, because I think there's been a disconnect with Hereford with the fans for a while, and it was my job when I took over to rebuild that, bridge that gap, and get the fans back in at the football club. And you know, that's what we've been worked on with. We let go of the youth team, so we brought the youth team back. I've imprinted our DNA on the youth team, and we're going to have college programs, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in the community to really bridge that gap. And the big thing as well is, when you look at finances, we need to be sustainable with just not gate receipts, but actually other things outside of the game that makes the club sustainable, which gives me more of a budget. So, you know, we're trying to build a football club. We went from being out of business to reformed to promotions back to back, and then all of a sudden we hit the National League North level, and you've got big clubs, York, Chester, Boston, all these clubs that have got more money than you, and we haven't built the infrastructure of the football club. So, and that's what we're doing now. And I think we will be a big football club and we will get back to where we need to go. But that takes time and it takes patience. And I think sometimes that's the biggest thing for me as a manager is that, our expectation levels from our fans are up there. But the reality of it, we've got a lot of building to do at the football club, which means I need time. So it's managing that, and managers don't have time a lot of the time. And, after 10 games, we got to Wembley last year, and after 10 games this season, people are like, it ain't working. We need to change it. I'm like, just relax. It's coming. So it's just probably just having a bit of time really is the biggest thing to really improve what you want to do at the football club. But yeah, it is difficult. There is pressure. There's pressure from obviously when clubs come and, things aren't going well on a match day and the fans will get on your back. But what I would say is our fans this season have been absolutely outstanding. From, the first 10 games we had when we haven't really won any, well, we'd won one. They cheered us off every week. They clapped us. They, because we play a good style of football. So, that's been pleasing. But you just have to. I think if you love a football club, then the staff have all got to be involved in the football club, involved in the community, and really that makes the fans buy into the football club and buy into you and what you're trying to do because they see the passion for it. And I think that's a real big thing and a big plus for us. But obviously, it's what needs to happen at clubs that are probably at a level where they could probably go again.
Right. It's time for the questions from fans. So we'll avoid for the we'll avoid the questions at the moment of Gullies or O'Neill's or Pop World. So I guess so Michael asked, and this was probably the one of two of the highest voted. The other one's quite funny. After getting us promoted, did you think the nucleus of the squad would be kept together, or was it expected? I agree with Mike, but let's be Fenty would penny pinch in the contracts offered. Were you surprised with how quickly the team was sort of pulled apart, or was it expected after promotion?
I've never said this, but coming back the year after we got promoted was the worst feeling of my career.
Really?
Because
wow.
We got promoted. We were like brothers. We had a squad. We worked for a manager that we worked tirelessly for. We deserved to be in League Two with that team. And when I come back in the summer and there was loads of new faces, some of them attitudes weren't great. It was disheartening to be honest. And it was sad and I was angry, if I'm going to be honest, because we'd worked so hard. And what people don't understand about this football club is the pressure that season for us to get promoted was unbelievable. And the relief, it was more relief. And we know what it meant to the town. And to get promoted, it was just like we were gods. And then all of a sudden, you go into the next season, you go into pre-season on the first day, and you look around, and there's four of your mates from the team that got promoted. Was just heartbreaking, to be honest. Absolutely heartbreaking.
Was it a surprise that Hurst left? I guess with that sort of attitude, that must have permutated around the building. So an option like Shrewsbury comes up, you can kind of understand, I guess.
Yeah, I just think it's a great football club, isn't it? If we're going to be honest about it, new stadium, real big history. If it was a player, would we begrudge a player moving up to that level? We wouldn't, would we? So, I mean, he had the opportunity to go and obviously gone there and done excellent, didn't he? So his kind of decision was vindicated, wasn't it? So, but no, I know you hear about things that are rumbling in the background and you're not sure whether or not people are getting on or not getting on or what it was. So we heard those things and obviously he moved on and it was just disappointing. It was just a disappointing season, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you still finished pretty strongly in that season, given all the change that was there. I don't think we even finished higher than that after, did we, Mike?
No,
no.
Not by a long way, mate.
Yeah, I think that team, if we get that team together, we would have a right go at League Two. We would have.
Agreed.
A right go.
Yeah,
I really do believe with a couple of additions, we would have had a right go at League Two. And there's 4 teams go up, we would have a right chance. I generally believe that because the team spirit, we're absolutely buzzing. I mean, we're still in a group chat now. That team has still got
That's
group chat.
That's amazing.
So
is it the same? Is it the same one from 2016?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we still got it now. I still speak to a couple of lads now. There's Omar, JP. who else? Maka. I speak to them all, so we all still speak. So yeah, I just think we deserved a year to have a go, and if it didn't work out, then yeah, make changes. But I just think we deserved it.
I can't not agree wholeheartedly, and I think it was certainly the beginning of the end of that bloke. Tom, what are you saying? You're waving like you're drowning.
You speak to Omar. Where the fuck is he? Why isn't he back here?
Have a word, Josh. Have a word.
Oh my God!
There's something about Hartlepool. He started making his way to the East Coast. He found a shop with all the he found a town with all the shops shut, and he just assumed he was back in Grimsby.
I have got a question though, Josh. So when Paul Hurst and Rob Scott first came to town, one of the things that I thought they would bring with them from Boston United was like a really solid set piece game. I actually watched Boston quite a bit because I grew up near Skegness. So, like, even though I am a Grimsby Town fan, Boston, as I was growing up, was like my second team. And for me, they've never really brought that really solid set piece game to town. As a player, did you think that was something that actually was worked on a lot? And for whatever reason, the fans don't see it? Or do you think that it's something that maybe could have been played on more?
Yeah, I think we could have done it more. I think the National League is, a big part of the National League. The ball's out of play a ridiculous amount of times. There's a ridiculous amount of throw-ins, ridiculous amount of free kicks and corners, and we probably could have, but we got promoted. So it's one of them, isn't it? Do you do work really low on set plays and then it takes away concentration at other levels? You're just getting that balance, I suppose. But I just thought, the team we had was just dynamic. It could solve problems in game itself. We had a really mature team and we went from strength to strength. But yeah, we probably could have done a little bit more, to be fair, probably. But
is it something that you really concentrate on at Hereford, for example?
Well, I can say that, but we can see the two from a corner on Saturday, so I'm not so sure.
Not necessarily.
I'm checking the Hereford message board.
Yeah.
What about from like an attacking point of view, though? Like,
yeah. I mean, if you look at the final at Wembley, we worked on a few set plays and we scored from one in the final. So we do. I use my stuff well. So Jan Kikowski does our set plays, so he'll go away and look at them. When we look at set plays, we work on throw-ins tirelessly. I'm very big on throw-ins and keeping possession of the ball with throw-ins. So we work on a lot of that stuff. So, we want to be the best restart team. That's one of our remits. So we probably come away from that a little bit of late. So we need to get back to it a little bit. But I just think the National League level restarts everything.
I've got a question, Josh, sort of linking back into something you said a minute ago about the pressure and how tight that 2016 squad was. I'm sure everybody knows that after that first leg at Braintree, where we lost 1-0 at home, there was a bit of criticism. Rightly or wrongly, there's a lot of criticism.
I watched it back.
So I'm just really wondering, how did that affect the squad? Because I mean, you looked at Disley after the second leg, and there seemed to be a lot of emotion about getting through and coming over that into the second leg. I'm just wondering, how was the squad after that first leg? How did it affect Paul? Did you use it as a motivation?
I think, I can't speak for Paul because I don't know, but obviously I know the Cup of the Year thing was a big thing with the fans, and it's obviously played on his mind when we won because he did it. So for us, it was, we knew it, we knew what was there, but we also knew the pressure of that season to go up, and we knew that, and I think that was a big thing. So going into the game, it was a pressure cooker. To be honest, the Braintree game, like I said, we've not scored a goal against them all season. We lost 1-0 at home, and you want to play at home and take a lead going into Braintree. But you know what? We just believed, and we just believed that we'd stick at it, we'd get a breakthrough. And when we did, when it come, obviously we were buzzing it. And at the end of the game, that's why I say at the end of the game, the final was immaterial. We knew we were going to win the final because that was our final, because of the pressure, because of obviously what got on with Hursty, because of obviously the way we just hadn't beat Braintree all season. we just knew if we'd win that game, we'd get to the final. And we'd heard also that Forest Green weren't wearing their suits because they wanted to wear it after they won the final. So that just gives us a little bit more spice to it. So yeah.
I wish you could have told the rest of us, mate. You'd have saved a lot of nerves on that day. You should have just told us you were going to win.
To be honest, we 2-0 up. We went in at half time. We were like, yeah, this is easy. And then we come out second half and he put one in the top bins. And I was like, oh my squeaky bum time.
Do you know what? Very similar. I don't think I had that many nerves that day. I remember meeting Matt Dannett on the way back down. He was asking, maybe we'd had too many in the torch or something on the way before. I thought 3-0. And you get a wonder strike, and then it was a wonderful day. And I guess the question I've got: can you remember anything of the Halifax game at all? Do any of the guys?
Yeah, I was really pissed off that I wasn't playing. Basically,
I can imagine.
So basically, it was easy that week. To be honest, it was an easy week in preparation for the game, and for me, I want to win. So I wanted to go to Halifax and do the double. That's where I was at. And I trained properly all week. I was ready to go. And then obviously I got pulled the day of the game and said, look, we're going to give Shawnee a chance because he deserves a chance. And I get it. I get he deserves a chance, but I just want to win. So I wanted to go there and win. And I was really fucking pissed off after the game, to be honest, when we lost. Because I wanted to do the double. I did. But the reality was there was so much pressure on that game that anything else didn't matter. And I get that. I do get it. But the chance to do the double didn't come around often, so I was a bit.
Sorry, Tom.
The final, we were very nervous. I remember getting on the coach for the final, and we were all really nervous. And the media guy did a video about our season that season, the goals, the celebrations, all the fun stuff, and that is what won us the final. I thought because we got on the coach, we put that on, and from that minute, the coach was silent. That went on. And then we're laughing and joking and buzzing on the bus with it. And then we got there and the nerves had just gone. And then after that, we were just on it and we just knew where we were going to be.
That's really interesting. That's great to know. I mean, give that man a penny. That's brilliant stuff. A question similar. Tom, did you want to ask anything else about, because the FA Trophy final is the thorn in your side because you didn't get to go to the playoff final.
I just wanted to say, Josh, that I am with you on the FA Trophy final loss because, as Alex said, I didn't get to go to the playoff final. I lived abroad at the time, and when it came about that we got to the trophy final, the flights were a lot cheaper because I was able to book it a lot further in advance. I was like, well, we're guaranteed for that. I'll go for that one. And I just really enjoyed the FA Trophy as a competition when we were down in non-league. And I really wanted to win a trophy. Like, getting promoted via the playoffs is great. But for me, it's not a trophy in the same way as winning a league or a cup competition is. And so I was desperate to win it. And we'd had quite a good record in it under her. So I totally sympathise with you.
So it's your fault then.
Yeah. If it helps, I mean, I've told this story far too many times, but I didn't have a ticket to the playoff final either. When I was walking down Wembley Way with my dad, and he had his mate there, and he goes, where's Lee sitting? He's sitting next to us because he'd asked me to buy the tickets, and he said, how many do you need? 2. Okay, so I assumed he meant me and him. And he goes, oh no, he sat next to it. He sat next to us. How did you get that? Well, you got 2 tickets. Yeah, for me and you, not for a random bloke. So I'm going, they better sell tickets. So I'm running around looking for Wembley ticket office, which is down in the deep, trying to get. I just had to sit randomly in the middle of nowhere. Very funny. Anyway,
I was dating my now obviously missus, and I've got kids at Grimsby. At the time, that was the first game she came to. The final.
That's not a bad way to introduce you. You go, yeah, this is our home place. Yeah, this is where we play
all our games. I don't know if she's like a glory hunter or what. I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm going to have words with her about it. But
she didn't talk to you for a week after Halifax. Is that it?
Yeah. She didn't come to home, to be fair. Maybe that's her fault as well.
Phil asked a question It's probably worth reminding this man is going to probably go nowhere near another football club. Did it annoy you having Fenty mooching about the Braintree dressing room and Wembley pitch like he'd scored the winner himself? It does me, so you can be honest.
So look, I know there's been a lot of, I don't know how to say it, animosity with John regarding
I
the
hate
football
him.
club. Yeah. So John with me, so what you don't know is the year that we got promoted, I had a bad knee, so and I couldn't train every day, and basically the club doctor was just like, yeah, you can't train anymore, you're going to be struggling. So John paid for me to go and see a specialist, get a knee up, and get it all sorted. So and what he did do in the summer when I had it done, he contacted me on a regular basis how I was and made sure I was all right. So John's always been all right with me. I thank him for that because he got me through the season. So. But I also understand a lot of the history behind you guys and with John and stuff. So, I can only go on my experience with John. So from that point of view, I can't say too many bad things about him. We used to go to his house every start of every season. He'd throw a pie for all the team just to welcome him at the start of the season and stuff. But look, I know where he's at. I know he's tight. Because there was times we'd want things done at the training ground and he'd be down there with his spade and shovel and doing it himself rather than paying for anyone to do it. So I get where you're coming from with that side of things, definitely.
Good stuff. Okay, right. And then Lee. So Lee has asked a question that's coming, and if anybody else wants to do it, sorry if I missed this. Does Josh want to manage Town one day?
We'll see. We will see. I'll never say never, that's for sure. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'm not looking that far ahead. Obviously, I'm just starting out in my managerial career myself, so I've got aspirations. I mean, my aspirations get to the championship as a manager, minimum. So that's where I want to be, and that's what I'm working towards, doing that. So, look, Grimsby is a club that's always going to be in my heart. My kids are from here. My partner's from here. The relationship I've got with the football club is amazing. The staff are still here. I go in the club shop at times and speak to everyone. And obviously the things that I've done in my career here will just live with me forever. So the club's always going to be a part of me. So if it means I manage the club one day and I get that honour, then fantastic. But if I don't, for me, the memories are forever.
Michael, I can't ask your top 11 because we'd be here a while naming your favourite Town 11. So James Howe asked, Grimsby are back in the league that you fought. So we've already talked about it. So how does it annoy you that they're back in this league so quickly after
I came to a lot of games last year. And yeah, I was angry, to be honest, because the way it turned around so quickly and the mismanagement of stuff at the start of last season, which is the reason why it ended up going the way it did, was disappointing for me because I think we just worked so hard to get there and get back up. And to be honest, it was a poor league last year. And for us to go down last year in such a poor league, I was,
Were you surprised that a manager of sort of Ian Holloway's experience prepared a team in that way for that season?
When I saw the signings, I was worried at the start of the season, if I'm going to be completely honest, because obviously we do our homework on players. And when I saw a few of the signings, I was a bit. I mean, they took a few lads from leagues below mine, which it's League Two. It's not the National League or our league. So I was slightly concerned. But you look at him; he's charismatic. He spoke well. He got everyone believing in the club. He got the fans together, which was great for a period. But obviously, I think not having a pre-season is just unbelievable. How that's happened, I don't know. Pre-season is the basis of your season. If you don't have a pre-season, you've not got a hope in hell of doing anything. And the fact that they didn't have a pre-season is beyond me. I've never heard anything like it.
Play Cleethorpes?
Yeah.
Richard Young asked, obviously with Giles Coke and Lenny coming here, was there any form of tension with you and Hurst over that, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think when you've got something that someone else wants and you don't want to let it go, then obviously there's always going to be a bit of tension, to be honest. I think that's just human nature. I didn't like the way things were portrayed in the press, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think better with a football rather than putting things out like that. But, that's football, isn't it? So, yeah, it was. I was probably more disappointed with Lenny than I was anyone else, the way he went about it. Giles' situation was different. There was an issue. I mean, my football club had issues, had admin issues that we've sorted, and there was a big part to play in it. So we held our hands up, and we held our hands up with it, and with the Giles situation, with his registration and stuff. I mean, he was at Grimsby for a pretty long time. So, us getting the blame for that was beyond me when he'd been in for 2 months or how long he'd been in. So no one checked his registration and we got the blame for it. So I felt that was a bit strange. But what I did do is I rang the club, I rang the FA, I rang the National League, and I pushed it as much as I could to make sure that Giles could sign at Grimsby. And I did everything in my power to do that. And, obviously for me to do that and then see that in the press was a bit disappointing.
Lenny's wondering why he's been removed from that WhatsApp group. So kick him. Well, I guess now he's back facing you this season as well.
Yeah,
do you play York again?
Yeah, we've got York. So we've got Curzon Tuesday, Southport Saturday, and then we've got York the next game. So I think it's his last game of the month, I think.
Oh, wow, there you go. And that's his last on loan, I think, if it's only for the month. Did you ever let Nathan Arnold cut your hair? What was your favourite chippy in town? And you seem to have a real affection with the town. What drives that? Because a lot of, maybe we just pick the ones that like us, but what is there something different here? Is it because it's a cut-off community, and it's got nothing else to look to? I
think, my missus is from here. So I'm a 2 kids from here, so that kind of helps, to be honest. But
I tell you something, the women of Grimsby do a hell of a lot of work for this. But if it wasn't for Ben Davis's wife, he wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
You're saying you've got no choice, Josh. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, if he wasn't here, I would not be here. But obviously, when you do something that we did, you always have an affinity with a place that will never die, I think. And the fans were great with me from day one. Even knowing that I played for Lincoln and then coming here, they were absolutely, you guys were absolutely fantastic with me. And I liked being at the football club for the pressure, if that makes sense. So, because I like the fan base, I like there was loads of fans, I like that there was a kind of expectation for us to go up and that kind of pressure. And I'd like to think I thrived into that. I played my best games when there was big crowds. So I just loved being at the club, just everything about it. We had a great team spirit. You go into town. The big thing for me is I've been at a lot of clubs, and it's not often that you go into town and you see fans wearing the club shirts. And, you walk around Grimsby and you see Grimsby hats, scarves, shirts everywhere. And for me, that's quite unique. And I've travelled around quite a lot. So for me, you could just feel the passion for the football club. And that's definitely something that's always stuck with me and why I've had such a kind of affinity for the club. And obviously the girls are decent, and that's what I'm missing.
Tom, what's your question?
Yeah, excuse my ignorance, Josh. Where did you start your career?
So I started at West Bromwich Albion.
And at what level were they playing at when you started?
So we were Championship and Premier League. And then after that, my career went.
So do you think that since you started out, the dynamic of the conference as a division has changed immeasurably, or do you think it's pretty much the same as what it was when you started out?
Well, I didn't know about the conference when I started out, if I'm going to be completely honest. If I'm going to be completely honest, it was a level that I never thought I'd want to be at or play at. And that's, as an aspiring young lad, you want to play in the Premier League. So you're not looking at the league and that stuff. But what I would say is when I dropped in the National League to what it is now, it's got a lot more professional. There's a lot more football played. It pees me off when you see FA Cup games and you hear commentators saying, they'll blow up because they're part-time players. Well, with all due respect, most teams in the National League now, or especially in the Premier, are full-time. So I think the professionalism's got a lot better. The standard of coaching's got better. I think the players have got better. But along with that, the money's obviously increased exponentially. And if you look at some of the big clubs like the Chesterfields, the Stockports, they're paying a lot more money than most of the Football League clubs, which is why you find a better caliber of player at this level. But what I would say is the National League as a brand needs to be better because it's got a commodity. Should have a brand that as far-reaching, and I think it needs to be better. With that side of things, the sponsorship, the commercial side of things, I do think it needs to be improved because if you look at the Football League and the Premier League, the commercial revenue they bring in from being organised and getting the right sponsorship in is massive, and I think the National League needs to get on their page a little bit.
Do you not think so? On that note, do you not think that is where the lower leagues have missed out with the European Super League? So if like the top, say 6 or 7 clubs, whatever it was, had gone off and formed their own Super League, that would have left 14 clubs in the Premier League, which for the English Premier League audience wouldn't have been, in my opinion, sufficient to sustain a division. So at that point, in my opinion, the power actually is with the Football League and non-league to say, okay, you're now without a division, you can come back into our league, but we're going to reset the rules and make it more homogenous, and we're going to return the League Cup to being, say, finish on the night, extra time and penalties, not going straight to penalties, because let's face it, from a fan's point of view, that is complete and utter shite, and not having replays in the FA Cup, or not having replays like early on in the FA Cup. I can't remember how they do it now, but basically the new format of the FA Cup is a bit rubbish as well from a fan's perspective. Yeah. Do you not think that was a great opportunity for the whole of English football to say, no, we're bigger than 6 clubs, rather than the sort of, from my point of view, it was a kind of like sort of fake, oh no, we really like football, from like Chelsea fans, Tottenham fans. Yeah. Because really they just want to maintain the status quo.
Yeah, but again, if you're looking at money, those 6 clubs bring in the money for football in England. And if you lose that, there will be a trickle-down effect. And yes, they should probably give more money down the pyramid. But I think if you lose that revenue, you're losing a massive audience, aren't you? And that, I think, would have a trickle-down effect with the finances of the Championship and the Football League. So I just don't think the Premier League will let that happen anyway because of the money they make. But I don't think it would have been good for football, personally. I think that it needs to be regulated more. I think the finances need to be regulated better. Because if you look at, there was a period, obviously, last year when we had the grant situation and we needed whatever. I mean, we got like 20. We didn't get anything, basically. And if you look at the Premier League, one club could have given $1 million to our level and it would have sorted our level out for the whole season. So when the disparity in money is like that, there needs to be. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm a Liverpool fan, and the managers are excellent there. They've got a great team, commercially sellable, and they bring all this money in. I'm not saying, well, because you're bringing that in, we've got to have it all. But I just think, like, this is what I'm speaking about the Premier League. If the league is more nationalised, as in we've got more control of it, the money will filter down better, and it will filter down all through the pyramid. So then we'll have 2 teams going up from my level with the playoffs. So 3 teams from the National League. Because if you look at the National League right now, there's probably 5 teams in that National League that if they went in League 2 would make League 2 better. And there's probably 5 teams in League 2 right now that are just hanging above the breadline every season, just hanging in there. So you take them out, and all of a sudden League 2 is excellent. The National League, there's probably 3 or 4 teams at our level that would go in the National League and make the National League a lot better. And then you have a group there. So that needs to change. That structure needs to change. There needs to be more teams going up and down. And I think that will make it more competitive. But those 6 teams breaking away from English football, I think, would be disastrous financially for everybody else. I really do.
Mike, what were you going to ask?
Yes. So yeah. James Howes was asking, so what have been your big influences on your management career? He's read that you're big on science. He's sort of wondering where that's come from. And tying in with that, Matty Lon would like to know, who have you sort of lent on the most as you started off in your management career?
So I would say so. Sean O'Driscoll, when I was at Bournemouth, was probably the biggest influence in my career. He was meticulous with all his details. We did analysis. We brought in a psychologist if lads had any issues. He was well above his time. And then there was Richard O'Kelly, who was just the absolute most positive man. Then there was Big Knot in a different way with things. So I've took bits from a lot of managers to kind of mould and shape the way I want to be, as a manager, for sure.
I mean, what did you learn from Big Knot?
Well, when I was with Sean, we used to do analysis, and I thought when I was going to be a manager, I was going to be right. We're going to do our analysis sessions every week. We're going to do this, this, and this. And then when Marcus come in, we do 3-hour analysis sessions. And I just see the effect that had on the mentality of the squad. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I think you just need a good balance. And look, some of the things he did were excellent, and I'm not going to speak too highly of him because, but some of the things he did were good. But then you just take things from people, and you just sit back as I was, at that period, looking at the next phase of my career, and you look at the good and the bad things, and you pick bits out. And for me, it was just a bit too long. And really, footballers have got attention span of about 20 minutes. So, if you're in a room for 3 hours, you're probably the lads are going to take on 10, 15 minutes of it. And then the rest of it's immaterial, it's irrelevant. So, I took a lot from that. But Sean was a real big influence on me, real big. And same with Hursty, just his competitive training. So training was always competitive. It was combative. So, just getting that balance was important for me going into managing. And I think it's a good thing that I've gone in now, because I've been in a while now, but not long finished training. So you know what you want to feel in a training session and how it flows. And I'm not too detached from playing, that I understand, the tempo and all that stuff of a training session. So that was big for me. But the science side of things, I've obviously did a psychology degree. I looked at football, and when I was in my mid to late 20s, I started looking at football and having a look at the way it was going. And I just felt that the mental health side of things was vital moving forward, and player development and the way the tonality of players was important. So I wanted to learn that, and I wanted to learn, how to get the best habits out of players and how to speak to them and what drives them and what motivates them. So that drive was what that came from, really, and just doing loads of reading and research on things. So that more than anything.
I've just had that realization I'm not at work tomorrow. Sorry, I've just looking at my schedule, see what's going on. One of the questions that we get asked by every player is, who was the best player you ever played with? Let's go with Town and then overall, because I imagine at both Bournemouth and one thing we haven't touched on is sort of your time in the Danish Super League as well at the beginning of your career. Who were the best players that you played with that sort of stick out in your mind, both at Town and elsewhere?
I mean, away from here, there was a lad called Stephen Cook. He was Villa. He made his debut when he was 17 against Man U. He was unbelievable, but he just had injury after injury, and he just didn't materialise. But the one name that really sticks out is probably Darren Anderton. I just think.
I mean, that's cheating.
I remember we played a game. I remember playing a game at home, and I've passed him a ball, and he's got his back to the play. And he's picked up the ball, turned, and just hit a diag about 50 yards. And I looked at him and I thought, I didn't see that pass. And I was looking at the whole pitch. And I was just like, wow. Like, some of the things he could do with the ball were just unbelievable. And you could just, why he's playing. You knew why he played at that level. Just his game IQ was just ridiculous. It was just, honestly, it was just on another level.
Was he from Bournemouth originally? Was that why he went there?
Yeah, he was down that way. He had a house and everything down there. So,
he's got to live on sandbanks, hasn't he?
So there's another place called Wrexham, which is as rich, pretty much. He had a big house. And his house, I think Harry Redknapp had a house there as well, next door to him. So you used to have like house parties there, and you go around there and you'd be like, yeah, this guy's living the life. A big pool and everything. And just like,
Josh is there with his business card.
Yeah. How can you put that, please?
And what about at Town? Who was sort of the most gifted at Cheapside?
We
got to change the name of our training ground.
I know, yeah. It's a difficult one, really. I think Nath could change a game. I think Marshy was the most skillful, definitely the most skillful. But I thought Nath could just change a game. He was big, strong, quick. He could just change a game. And then Podge was probably the best finisher. He would do nothing in a game, and he used to sometimes with Podge, right, would be like 80 minutes in a game. I'm like, you're getting it in the changing room after the game. And then the 89th minute, it would go and score, and I'm like, fuck. But he just scored goals. I mean, the year we went up, he was unreal, wasn't he? Everything.
Oh, we've lost Grimsby.
That's unfortunate. Who changed my thing to Hurston?
I did it. I'll see if I'll take Josh when he starts moving again, because it's a rather unflattering image of the poor guy. See if that fixes it. I mean, I want to ask Josh as well. I want to know if they're still in a WhatsApp group together. I want to know if what that WhatsApp group looked out. You know, that day that Podge stood in front of Macca against Newport for that free kick. Yeah. I'd have loved to have seen the WhatsApp group that day. I hope we haven't lost Grimsby. Have we lost any viewers?
Yeah, maybe it's Grimsby. We're all right down here, aren't we?
It's finally Storm Eustace has gone up there and taken revenge. Apparently Leeds is mullered today. Apparently there's a barge stuck underneath the. Why did I do that? It's stuck under the Leeds train station, and no trains can get in and out. So that must be fun for Yorkshire Police, who had 900 officers on duty for their game with Manchester United today.
Slightly less for when we go to Nottingham then.
Oh yes, slightly less, yeah. But we obviously have Times journalists as well to help out. Welcome back. One thing I was going to ask you, Josh, is if you guys have still got a WhatsApp group. Speaking of Podge, I'd have loved to have known what the reaction was like. There was a day when we played Newport and Podge was there. He went and stood in front of Macca for a free kick. Were you?
Yeah.
I would love to have known what the reaction was in that group that day. There must have been some effing and jeffing.
I actually keep in contact with Podge. I spoke to him not long ago, actually, because he's at Exeter, isn't he? So, yeah, and he's looking at transitioning his next phase of his career as well. So, I think he's going to go down the coaching and managing route as well.
Are you trying to get an option for a player sort of coach role for him at Hereford?
I don't know what you mean.
wondering why Hereford have scored 95 goals next season. All from a grand total of 35 yards. What were your? Are there any other stories are there any stories that you can tell about your time at Town to wrap it up that we might not have necessarily asked? Or are there any abiding memories that you do have?
I'm just a Moro being everywhere in his shorts and t-shirt, no matter what the weather. I'm real in it, Dave Moore. The strongest man. Walking around the training ground with his dog.
Okay.
Everyone's watching. Yeah, he'd have his dog, and he'd just be walking around the training ground with his dog, and you'd be like, Moro, someone's injured. He'd be like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. In his shorts and t-shirt in the middle of winter when it's snowing.
I think I saw Dave Moore with his trousers on once, and that was a day that I was very worried of what was going on.
Oh wow! I've still yet to see it. Never seen it.
I'd love it. I mean, we've got to get to a point where he's got to be invited to a wedding or an event of some sort where formal wear, and he'll just be in shorts.
I'm going to make up an event and invite him. So there's no one there, and he's just going to come on his own, and just so I can see him in bottoms.
Have you had christenings yet or anything?
No, not yet. No. I'm going to get him one day. Because even when I've seen him passing a few times. We've been in a car, so you can't see his legs, so you're not sure if he's got trousers on or not. So I know this is a bit weird, but yeah.
I do like that idea. I'd love him to win like some sort of PFA award for like recognition, and he's up there with, I don't know, Gary Lineker, and he's just in short. He's basically made for every Zoom meeting. That's brilliant. Have you guys got anything else to ask before we let Josh get on his way? Because I assume he's got some planning to do this week.
Yeah, so some of us have got work as well, mate, not you.
I know. It was quite nice. It's like that thing of waking up and realizing it's not Monday. But I'm sure I've got other things to do. It's half term. Josh, it's an absolute pleasure, man. And we will welcome you back any time because it's so good to hear about it.
It's good to speak to you guys anyway because it's been. Obviously, there was that game. What was the last game? Was that Halifax game? Was the last game I came to. So it's just nice to obviously still speak to everyone and obviously relive good memories. It's always good.
There was a fair few Mariners at that former Mariner. Robbie Stockdale was there.
Yeah.
And congratulations to him on beating Scunny at the weekend.
Yeah, I think they might be going down.
Yeah, they're not coming back for a while, unfortunately. I mean, it's good for the region, I guess.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, are you, as a former Lincoln player, are you surprised Lincoln are starting to slow, or are they just having a fallow year?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I think they hit some real good momentum, didn't they, with the Cowley brothers, and Appleton's a really good coach as well. He is, to be fair, and obviously I know him when I was at West Brom. He was playing in the first team, so he's meticulous with details and he's a really good coach. So yeah,
they had a lot of loan signings, didn't they, last year?
Yeah, I think I mean, you get some really good lads in from loan, but are they yours? No, they're not. And I think they're coming in for a reason, aren't they? To get back in their first team or get moved somewhere else. So, and I think when they go back, then you're kind of left with players that I think sometimes that you brought loans in for a reason, haven't you? So, but no, yeah, I think they have slowed. I think they'll pick back up. I think they're in a good place. The Moose training ground, they've got a really good training ground now. They've got good facilities. I think they've invested in the club wisely, I think. So I think they're steady. I think they'll always be steady in that league. Now, I mean, they started really well, didn't they, the start of the season? And you're thinking, oh, they're going to go again here. And then they've just fallen off. I don't know what money they're investing in the squad. So I don't know why they've dropped off. Or because, I mean, I know a lot of clubs in the National League and the leagues above are spending a lot of money. So whether or not that money's just dried up now, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, they've established themselves as a football league club again, haven't they? And I think that was probably, if you'd asked them to do that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whenever it was, they probably would have said no chance. So I think they're in a really good place. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. All I can say is it's good for the region, I guess. If it's a strong region, it's a strong opportunity. It's when we start taking players on loan, it'll hurt. I mean, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much. And thank you to everyone to listening. Mikey, thank you for joining us. So glad you survived Hurricane, whatever it's called. Same with you, Tom.
New one coming soon, isn't it?
Oh, brilliant. I've only just taken... I was out there with a Dremel taking down a metal gazebo yesterday.
There's nothing worse than being in the south when there's cold, bad weather.
We need a coat.
They're not used to it.
That's true. Well, speaking of down south, we'll see you around here sometime soon, Josh. But see everybody. I'm not even gonna do the code. There we go, because I can't find